Gender-based violence or violence against women and girls is a global pandemic affecting 1 in 3 women in their lifetime. According to the World Health Organization, 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical and/or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence. Globally, 7% of women have been sexually assaulted by someone other than the partner. As many as 38% of murders of women are committed by an intimate partner, and 200 million women have experienced female genital mutilation. Aligned with the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, I'll be speaking with Anthonia Ojenagbon, founder of Tonia Bruised but Not Broken Rape Survivors Foundation. Good morning, Anthonia. Glad to have you join me.
Good morning, Ademola. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, what are the forms of gender-based violence?
Okay, there's several forms of gender-based violence. So we have verbal violence, physical violence, psychological violence. In fact, now we have financial violence. We have domestic violence and intimate partner violence, which is the most common that happens to 1 in every 4 women that you meet.
Now, many of us have an idea of what we think domestic violence or gender-based violence is all about. You can get caught up with that mindset that it's not going to happen to me, you know. So I don't need to, the people don't think about it so much. And obviously, that's not always the case. In your line of work, what have you found to be some of the misconceptions about gender-based violence?
Okay, some of the misconceptions are, first of all, we need to establish this. Gender violence can happen to anybody. It doesn't have respect for your class. It doesn't have respect for your status. It doesn't have respect for your traditional or religious upbringing. It doesn't have respect for anybody. It can happen to anyone. One of the misconceptions are, if you come from a very good home, you will not go through gender-based violence. That's not true. Abuse happens in dysfunctional homes. Abuse doesn't happen in normal homes. Those are misconceptions. Another misconception is if you are legally married, you will not go through gender-based violence. No, that is also not true. Another misconception is abuse happens by mistake. And if someone does it, the person might not perpetrate it again. That's not true. Abuse doesn't happen by mistake. Another misconception is it is the fault of the victim when the abuse happens. No, it is not the fault of the victim. It is the perpetrator who chooses to abuse the victim who is at fault, not the victim.
Now, a US study shows that children, even if they are not being abused themselves, but exposed to domestic violence, for instance, a boy sees his mother being abused, is 10 times more likely to abuse his own female partner as an adult. Now, a girl who grows up in a home where her father abuses her mother is more than 6 times likely to be abused as compared to a girl who grows up in a non-abusive home. Anthonia, how can we break the cycle of abuse in our society?
I think the first thing we need to begin to do is we need to start a reorientation. Too much damage has been done. A lot of dysfunctional homes. I grew up in a very normal home, normal in the sense that my parents were very religious and I never saw my father hit my mother. So when I got married, I never expected my spouse to hit me. I began to see that, I started finding out that even people who grew up in functional homes and got married to people who grew up in functional homes, abuse still happens there. So we need a lot of reorientation. We need to start now. We need to begin to group our children to know that abuse is not acceptable. You know, like we have earlier enumerated, we have different forms of violence. None of it is acceptable. You know, we need programs to teach more men, more women. We're not only going to be talking to the women now because we tend to have focused the training of women, leaving our men behind. Now we want an all-encompassing training that will train both men and women. Both men and women need to go through emotional intelligence classes. You know, we need to begin to do intentional parenting. We cannot continue to parent the way our parents parented us. That style didn't work. Now intentional parenting is what is working. So we need all of this so that we will bring up good children, functional and normal children, children who are emotionally and mentally fit. We have too many people breaking down now because of the upbringing they have. So we don't want it to continue. So for that not to continue, our orientation towards marriage, having an intimate relationship with the opposite sex needs to change for us to begin to see this good.
Now, let me just backtrack a bit. You were a lead voice in ensuring justice was served in the case of Dr. Olufemi Olaleye, the medical doctor sentenced to life imprisonment for defiling his wife's knees. I'm sure in your own field of work, you have handled so many other unique cases. But help me understand, Anthonia, why do people abuse others?
People abuse other people because they want to abuse other people. Some people say a hurting person will hurt another person. That's what psychologists are saying now. Some people have gone through abuse, they have not healed, and there's continuing this cycle of abuse. In the case of the doctor you just mentioned, he is a sex maniac. He didn't deal with it. His psychologist was also in court all through the process, all through when we were going to court, she was in court, and she kept saying that if he had continued with the therapy that he came for when he knew he needed help, probably we would not have gotten to where we are. But he chose to continue the cycle of abuse. And his own abuse was just not his niece. It was the monumental abuse that it's so scary to begin to enumerate them. You know, he videoed women who came for cervical cancer screening, using the videos to blackmail some of them and using some of them as his pleasure. You know, watching the videos later. Some of the women, their husbands sat at the reception waiting for them to be screened, you know, and this man would demobilize them, RAPE them, and their husbands would not even know. And you know, because of the shame and the stigma attached, these women come out and they're not bold enough to tell their husbands, this is what has happened. You know, so we have cases we have cases of people who came out. We have the case of an upcoming actress who came out on social media.
Apologies to cut you short, Anthonia. I am pressed for time, but I have two pressing questions to ask you. Talk to me about factors stimulating gender-based violence in Nigeria in less than 30 seconds.
Okay. One of the factors doing that is age. Like I said earlier, we need to begin to reorientate people. We need to encourage more people to get emotional intelligence training. The level of education is also one of them. And tradition and religion plays a major role. You see, our tradition, our religion especially, has put men in a certain pedestal. Sometimes I think that they place them higher than God. So a lot of these people who abuse people think that they're bigger than everybody. They cannot be brought to book. And they think that they can perpetrate crime and go away with it without nothing happening to them. I'll give you a typical example. 3 weeks ago, a woman was severely beaten by her husband. We were called and we took her to the police station. It will interest you to know that because the DPO of that police station was a woman, this guy physically assaulted the woman, asking her, how dare you send police officers to come and rape me?
Apologies, Anthonia. I would have to, end this conversation here. But just one final thought I want for you, to someone out there being abused, but silent for fear of stigmatization. Very briefly.
Please speak up. Speak up. Your voice.
Okay, I was just saying, what's your advice to someone out there being abused, but in silence for fear of stigmatization? Very briefly.
Speak up. Do not allow fear to keep you down.
Okay, we'll have to end
if you need help is available.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Anthonia Ojenagbon, founder Tonia Bruised but Not Broken Foundation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.